Good morning, everybody, and I thank you all for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join us for this important conference. And I know we think about workplace bullying. Sometimes people think of it as child's play or something that happened on the playground, but or when you were in grade school, but it is a real thing that certainly affects, I'm going to share my screen now, certainly affects our workplaces. So the title of my presentation is Power plus Pressure equals Null, meaning a null set, meaning something negative, meaning something is absent, and the impact of workplace bullying on the STEM fields. Of course, I certainly want to thank the planning committee. I have to be honest, we had fun. We all are from different places, different campuses, different experiences, but with mutual respect and expertise and some commitment, these academic endeavors can truly be fun. So I want to thank the planning committee and the moderators for creating such a wonderful experience as we prepared for today. Just a little bit about me. I just put this out there because sometimes people are like, well, who was talking with me? So these are some of the places that I've gone and some of the press that I've gotten. But it's not so much about ringing my own bell here. It's more about saying these are the places, and there are numerous others that my colleagues could speak to who are trying to do something about this workplace bullying epidemic. Just a little shameless plug here. I have a book being released by Routledge Press in May 2021, The Human Resources Perspective on Workplace Bullying in Higher Education. And the foreword is by David Yamada. The reason why I bring this up is because so often we go to human resources or the EEO office to complain about workplace bullying and blame HR when they are a little bit ineffective. But the truth of the matter is, HR also needs the support as well. They need to be charged with the policies and led by the C-suite in education to begin to address workplace bullying. So I'm going to start out with a cursory and one of my go-to definition about workplace bullying means harassing, offending, socially excluding someone, or negatively affecting someone's work tasks. The person ends up in an inferior position. And it's not a one-time incident. It's not somebody swiped your parking space one day or someone pushed the button on the elevator and they purposely had you miss the car going up. This is something that happens with escalating behaviors and over a period of time. The Scandinavians will say it's over a period of 6 months. And when I've given that figure to American audiences, they say, I don't need 6 months to realize I'm being affected by bullying. But we also have to be concerned about workplace well-being. Many studies, national and international, have documented the health issues and the work issues that are a product of workplace bullying. So the target is obviously stressed out, which leads to anxiety, insomnia, panic attacks, and weight swings. The weight swings come from a couple of different things. Either you've rekindled your love affair with Popeyes or Ben and Jerry's, or you've just decided, I don't feel like cooking, I don't feel like eating, and so your weight decreases. Either way, it's a response to the stress. Workplace bullying interferes with the concentration, and it interferes with organizational commitment. And what this means is if you're busy being bullied, how can you focus on the detailed work in your lab during your experiments? And as far as organizational commitment is concerned, it's really hard to stay committed to an organization that allows you to be emotionally and psychologically beat up on at work. It leads to more turnover, and it leads to more idle time as people consider what's happening, why it's happening. And a lot of targets even think, gee, what did I do to deserve this attention? And so all of that leads into a lot of time that is wasted because of workplace bullying. In a recent, not so recent study that I did about 4 years ago, in that particular sample, 3.9 hours a week is wasted on workplace bullying. That equals 5 weeks a year. You might be thinking, what is spent on 3.9 hours? Well, I had a colleague who shared with me, podium side actually, about her experience with workplace bullying, and it was an isolated incident. It was around 11:30, and she had received that pesky group email. And as a junior faculty, she really felt put off with one of her senior colleagues, sent her an email, and then copied everybody, admonishing her for something silly, like a comma or somewhere, or the new version of something that needed to be done. And she was truly embarrassed in front of all of her colleagues because they saw the email. She spent the next 40 minutes ruminating. Should I walk across the hall and tell him off? Should I write him an email? Should I reply all? Should I ignore it? And she went on and on trying to think, what is the best response to this behavior? Well, her meeting came up around 12:30. So she's been thinking about this for 40, 50 minutes. And she gets into the meeting and she's still lingering about what should I do about this colleague. She's writing in the margins different strategies. She's really upset about it. And about halfway into the meeting, the chair says, I'll call her Sally. Sally, where are you? You're physically here, but mentally you're not. So that particular scenario, one email, about an hour and a half wasted on one instance, and it was never resolved. So imagine this goes on 2 and 3 times a week. And that's how we wind up spending 3.9 hours or 5 weeks of time dealing with a bully. I imagine what I could do if I had 5 weeks of my life returned back to me. Also, that time does not include the time spent by those consoling the target and the time other employees spend disengaging from a toxic environment. So imagine Sally was at the water cooler, so to speak, but nowadays we don't have water coolers. We have Twitter and we have texting and we have our phones that we interact with people. So how much time did she spend with colleagues, even if it was another 20 minutes? And maybe she had 3 colleagues. So that's 60 minutes of time that the organization has lost because of one incident. And now Sally needs some consoling or support. And so it really is a time-consuming behavior that needs to be addressed. The impact on individuals is well documented. That is one thing I have noticed throughout the time I've been studying workplace bullying. We just don't study the leadership issues, but we also look at what has happened to the health of the target. Some people use increased stress medication. And this comment isn't just from our studies. I think we've all had colleagues who have gone through this. Increased use of sleep medication because the insomnia and the rumination and what we call the cognitive arousal, trying to make sense of the day, sends people into insomnia, and then they need sleep medication. Some people have increased use of painkillers and pain relievers. We all know that stress kills. Stress on the body, stress on your eyes, stress on your hair, whatever kind of stress is on your system, your body has to fight that. And sometimes it invokes some pain. So we have more pain relievers as well. And alcohol abuse often increases. And in our American society, alcohol can be that go-to drug. I mean, there are here in Pennsylvania, I'm talking to you from greater Philadelphia, we have what's called state stores. And you have more groceries, stores that have alcohol in them, whether it's the beer or the wine or what have you. And this has become a bit of a soothing substance for some folks who are facing workplace bullying. So for my poll, just take a quick moment. Have you had a tough day at work or even a social event? And have you then come home or gone back to your hotel room to have a nightcap? So I believe this poll should appear shortly for you to participate. Great. About 50-50 here. 50% of you are saying, yeah, sure, you'll have an extra drink. And what goes on, of course, in American culture, alcohol sometimes is used, at the big game, whether you're watching hockey, whether you're watching football, whether you're watching, I don't know, even ice skating, perhaps. And it's something that it's a celebratory thing. You see it at weddings and other celebrations. but also because of what the alcohol does to the body, it kind of helps you relax and perhaps helps you forget the very stressful parts of your day. So imagine that you keep having these bad days. I'm going to close the poll now. And what this means, for example, I had an assistant director once, just a very dear colleague that I worked with several years ago. And we had gotten a new boss, new campus director. And then about a weekend, he said, oh, the magic number is 2. Okay. Then it was the magic number is 3. And about a month into it, he says, the magic number is 6. I said, what are you saying? And he says, 6. 6 is the number of alcoholic drinks I needed to have to get over the stress of this place. So it certainly can become a go-to coping mechanism, not a healthy one, but one that is commonly accepted. But we just talked about what happens to people's health, but what about the science? Distracted employees make more mistakes. They have more workplace accidents. So when you're dealing with sensitive materials in the lab and you're stressed out and you're not concentrating, you're not focused, what have you, what happens to your lab results? So for the study for our participants today, and I put this together over the weekend when we had about 80 who responded. I think right now we're about 93. 73% of the respondents are female, 25% were male, and the other 2% is other, non-binary. A majority of the age range is from 25 to 54, which is breaking up about 20% in each age band. And then the median, the most people, or in one category, is graduate students, while postdocs all the way through full professors are affected by workplace bullying. From our group that's visiting us here today, 56% reported insomnia, 40% sought a counselor, and 30% decreased interest in physical intimacy. So insomnia, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. I cannot stress enough for the 40%. This is a key way of managing the stress and the anxiety that you're feeling being bullied. In fact, bullied employees feel more stress than those who are facing sexual harassment. With sexual harassment, you at least know why you're being harassed. It's not appropriate, but at least you can put some point on it, like why it's happening. But for bullies and those who are bullied, it's kind of hard to understand, why are you picking on me? And so having a counselor can certainly help you make decisions, more logical decisions, instead of running from a bad situation to another, can help you sort through what is happening and also help you realize it's not you. 30% decreased interest in physical intimacy. Well, this is important because most data shows that a targeted employee goes home and then they're stressed out at home. Kids are stressed out, they've isolated themselves from the family, they don't talk about it. These are natural responses to stress and anxiety, but if you don't want to be hugged or touched or what have you, it does have an effect on your partner who's like, why are you rejecting me? And it has nothing to do with your partner. It has everything to do with your system is coping with bullying. So from our study, our brief little study, the impact on science, 39% of all of our respondents stated that the research is being affected because of bullying. And so these are the numbers. It's still a small sample, but appropriate. 59% asked to be quiet if there was a conflicting information. 26% were asked to rush a study. 28% were asked to sign away their authorship rights. And 15% were asked to report inaccurate findings. For this particular question was how does bullying have an impact on the science? And people were allowed to choose more than one. So this is why it's not adding up to 100%. It's probably over. Other things, what happened next? Many of you reported that nobody listened to you. You took more medication. You had to keep praising the bully. One person did report that they went to their vice president who dealt with the problem. Others have asked to change the lab. There's another study, this is unpublished data, but I wanted to look at workplace bullying and corruption. And in that particular study, the sample was 328, and the power analysis showed that 264 were needed for a valid sample of a chi-square analysis. And the research questions which employees, bullied or not bullied, are more likely to report workplace corruption. Employees facing workplace bullying experience are more likely to face corruption. That was my hypothesis. 34% of that sample reported being pressured into corruption, meaning falsifying reports, engaging in unethical hiring practices, covering up sexual assault. Also, more types of corrupt behavior included covering up workplace injury, lying to auditors, firing somebody who found corrupt practices, and ignoring grievances. So the chi-square test did show a statistical significance between bullied and non-bullied employees, meaning employees facing workplace bullying experiences are more likely to report workplace corruption, and it's accepted at the 0.01 level. So all this really means is if you're being bullied, first of all, unfortunately, the experiences you're having in the lab are pretty consistent throughout the field, but also for those of you who are in power positions, is that you are in a senior position in the faculty or with the lab or even with granting institutions, you want your lab to be an ethical place, because what happens when that doesn't happen? What happens when we have stress and anxiety going on in the lab? This is a true story, and I have been given permission to share it. Duke University had a huge problem a couple years ago. It was a quid tam incidents, which led to whistleblowing, and a whistleblower had uncovered all kinds of malfeasance in the lab. I believe 17 different articles had to be retracted. People were falsifying their data, yes, even at Duke. And after this was uncovered and the $112 million settlement came through, a lot of heads rolled up, even up through the executive administration. So this did occur over time. It was about a 5-year period. Scientists felt pressured to produce favorable results. Lab assistants were also pressured, and the result was disastrous for Duke. But they are now moving forward. They have hired a vice president of ethics and research, and they are tackling the bullying problem because it's not just about science, it's about good science. So I hesitated to include this as an example, but what if we all were feeling the pressure and still very much about COVID? And imagine if Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer had really rushed, and had skipped some vital steps with the vaccine. If we had false positives, pressure to bring a solution to market, even market-driven pressures. So we would like to think that the makers of these vaccines were not pressured to the point to give us a false solution, because that would be detrimental to humanity. Unfortunately, we have seen the results before. The transcripts of both shuttle disasters are very much the same. The one that was in the 80s, there was pressure and coercion to get that space shuttle off the pad. They had scrubbed the launch several times. It was particularly cold. President Reagan at the time was making his State of the Union speech and was pressuring NASA. I want this bird up in the air. He wanted a victory to talk about at his speech. The pressure was put on the team to approve the launch, even though there were 2 or 3 engineers in the room who were saying, it's too cold, the O-rings will not hold. And we know what happened. Even when this happened again about 20 years later, the transcripts were almost identical. There were people in there who had counter advice: do not launch, do not launch. But for whatever reason, even in the 2000s with the second disaster, nobody paid attention to those dissenting votes. In both examples, we unfortunately know what happened is that the entire crew was lost over the lab being pressured to give the answer. So now we're going to go into breakout groups, and we're going to have a quick discussion. The idea is that each team should create recommendations to curb coercion and bullying in STEM. Do we have any comments on how we can stop bullying? One is increase awareness of what bullying is across all members of our organization. Use to assign mentors outside. Mentorship is huge. I think that's a wonderful suggestion. I recently just did a study on that, interestingly enough, for AERA. And it turns out that if you have a mentor, and the mentor is knowledgeable about the field and can help you progress through your career, that actually is a positive distraction that helps you see your way through the bullying and on to greener pastures, if you will. So mentoring certainly is a great way of tackling workplace bullying. I've really enjoyed talking with all of you. I am at the time, and I don't want to hog up time for my colleagues because they are wonderful.